across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good evening to you. It is Petrie here with you through until 1 o'clock, and coming up at midnight. What do you think about this from Donald Trump? You'll have to start learning how to fight for yourself. The USA won't be there to help you anymore, just like you weren't there to help us. So, I mean, he is obviously alluding to the fact that, that Keir Starmer said no to joining in with... well, in fact, actually, Donald Trump... This is what's so bizarre about this man. He didn't really want any help. And he kept saying, well, we don't want any help from you. And if you send that, we don't need it. But he's more miffed because we didn't all pile in with him. Not that we could have piled in or should have piled in with the bombing anyway. But anyway, he says that's us not being there for him. He's also had a go at the French, Petrie Hosken. There's also, you know, slagged off the Royal Navy. All of this on a day when it's just been agreed that King Charles will be going over to America. I mean, I don't know how he does it. I don't know how he could sit down with those people after everything that they've done, but you'll have to learn how to start to fight for yourself. The USA won't be there to help you anymore. And I don't think he's just alluding to the Strait of Hormuz either. This will be music to Russia's ears. They are seeing the collapse of NATO. That's what this adds up to. If Donald Trump means that, and who knows with him, but this means the collapse of the NATO alliance, and Russia and China will be partying in their palaces over this news. So I want to talk about that. Like I was saying to Peter, anybody who watches this programme regularly will know that 3 weeks ago I said this was exactly what Donald Trump was going to do. I said, I can hear him saying, right, I've done my bit, now it's over to you. What that means is, like a toddler, he's gone in, smashed up all the toys and said, right, you fix them. This was not a problem before Donald Trump got involved in Iran. And as far as we know, with intelligence, Iran wasn't yet a problem either. So there was no imminent threat. It certainly is a threat, or was a threat, but no imminent threat. So I just want to talk to you about it, really, and see what you think about it. And also those of you with Donald Trump derangement syndrome, and those are the ones, in my view, that always agree with Donald Trump. Not those of us who don't always agree with Donald Trump. But tell me, what do you think about this? Do you think he's right? I'm sure you do. Because everything he does is right, isn't it? Everything. So is he right to abandon his allies like this to the mess that he and Israel have created? So that's the question, really. That's what I want to talk to you about at midnight. Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. As I always have to tell you, calls are charged at the international rate, but we do call you back. And you can text as well. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. The world economy is in a mess. There's no question of that. This is not going to be easily fixed. We'll be talking about what might fix it in a moment. For the rest of the programme, we have the wonderful Amy Fisher coming into the studio to chat through the papers. Simon Calder, the marvellous Simon Calder, who at one point in history was my dad's producer at the BBC. This is how with all these circles just keep going round and round and round. Round and round. Anyway, he is now, of course, travel correspondent at The Independent. So we're going to be talking about the new European entry system. If you haven't given them your biometrics and your fingerprints and your photographs, you may be in trouble. So we're going to be talking about that, especially if you're heading over to Europe for the Easter holiday. I wanted to get ahead of that for you. We're also going to be talking to Rupert Bell, Talk's royal correspondent, of course, about King Charles going over to the United States, and also that Ro Khanna, a congressperson in the US, has asked for King Charles to meet with Epstein's victims. So we're discussing that as well. But first, Donald Trump has taken aim at the UK and other allies once again, telling them to go and get their own oil from the Strait of Hormuz, saying that Europe will need to learn to fight for itself and won't be able to rely on US support. Meanwhile, following a meeting in Islamabad between Egypt, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia and Turkey, a new axis is trying to challenge the Israeli and Iranian dominance after the war. This is really fascinating, and what that access could mean for the rest of the world. And the foreign ministers of 10 European countries have issued a joint statement calling on Israel to avoid further widening of the conflict in Lebanon and to respect the territorial integrity of the country. I mean, good luck with that. I don't think that Israel is going to stop any time soon. Well, joining me right now is Lena Khatib, Associate Fellow at the Chatham House Middle East and North Africa Programme. Lena, a very good evening to you. Thank you. I know you've literally just left the Syrian president at Chatham House. What he was saying was quite interesting, wasn't it? That Syria are determined to stay neutral on this. They don't want any part of this.
Yeah, absolutely. I was attending a live event with him. He's obviously on his first visit to the UK, and he was determined that people understood that Syria does not want to be part of this war. And I don't blame him at all, because Iran does not like his regime. Iran was allied with the previous regime, which is the Assad regime. And what Iran would love to see is instability in Syria, and for this regime that basically he heads to collapse or fail somehow. And in a way, it is lucky that Syria doesn't have the kinds of US bases that exist elsewhere in the Arab world, because I think otherwise Iran would have loved to strike those kinds of targets. So far, for the large part, Syria has been spared, and he certainly would like it to continue to be that.
Well, of course, many European countries as well are trying to keep out of this as much as they possibly can, including Britain, who have said, look, we'll go and defend, and in fact we're sending more and more soldiers to defend allies in the Middle East, but certainly not to attack Iran. How much does that play in the UK's favour?
Oh, I mean, I know a lot of people think that why should we be involved at all? Because what's in it for us? But I don't think these people are well informed about the threat that Iran poses to the planet, frankly. And I'm here talking about the regime in Tehran, obviously not Iran as a country or the people. In the UK, we are hearing now quite a few bits of news about terrorist cells connected with Iran that keep being found out in the UK. These kinds of cells exist elsewhere in the world, all over Europe, in fact, and you also have illicit networks that engage in illicit finance that make a lot of money for the Iranian regime. And again, these networks are global. So you have an interconnected network tied to the global drug trade, money laundering, and all this is feeding armed militias and terrorists. And so, yeah, we were not, let's say, as the UK, under an imminent big missile attack from Iran. But the fact is, destabilizing activities by Iran were ongoing in the UK and elsewhere in Europe and all over the world, really.
And will we see any differential in that, given that countries like France have denied America use of airspace, Italy as well, and Spain, of course, very vocal. When it comes to these proxies, because they're all supported by Tehran, will we see a differential in those, in as much as, right, those in America or in other countries will be more likely to be attacked than we will in the UK? Or doesn't it make any difference at this point?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't make a difference. And the thing is, right now, Iran is fighting an existential war when it comes to the regime that is in charge there. They know that the US and Israel have maximalist goals in this war. They want this regime to no longer be a threat to the world, in particular to Israel and also to the Arab countries in the Middle East that are allied with the UK as well. So that's the objective of this military campaign. And Iran is obviously retaliating. It is striking Gulf countries. It is trying to increase the economic cost by trying to disrupt trade in the Strait of Hormuz, mainly the oil trade. But there is nothing that guarantees that Iran is not going to activate those terrorist cells that I mentioned. And these could be anywhere. And Iran, when faced with an existential threat, is going to thrash out and attack where it can to show the world that, you know, if you attack me, then the cost will be very high to you. And so I think it is really sensible for everyone to be vigilant and not assume that any one country is going to be spared. I mean, in the Arab world, the countries that were acting as mediators for Iran and with Iran, like Oman and Qatar, were themselves attacked by Iran. And it attacked, you know, civilian infrastructure as well in Arab Gulf countries. So it's not just the US bases. So again, you have a regime that is now honestly forming a threat. And maybe at the beginning of the war, a lot of people thought that this war, you know, will continue not to concern us. But as things have developed, whether people supported the war or not in the beginning, I think is in a way now besides the point. The point is now we have a very angry regime in Tehran.
Well, that's what I was going to say. With Donald Trump now saying that he's prepared to walk away, he's getting ready just to back out and say, I've done my bit. It's over to you now. I mean, he has thrown a bomb into a wasp's nest, right? They are now angrier, more vengeful and more hateful and more hardline than they were a month ago. And he's going to say that he's just going to walk away. Where does that leave the rest of the world? Particularly with the Strait of Hormuz, does that soften the regime in any way that they could have talks with the rest of the world who didn't get involved? Or are they going to double down now and take the power of the Strait of Hormuz to enrich themselves?
I mean, this is a regime that has always been uncompromising. In the past, it had agreed to the nuclear deal. People may remember there was a nuclear deal signed with Iran, and the US withdrew from that deal under the first Trump administration. But Iran actually never abided by the terms of that deal. So this is a regime that has been, you know, lying basically to the international community for a long time, while at the same time sponsoring terrorists all over, especially in the Middle East with Hezbollah, Hamas, and others. And so it is not a regime that's to be trusted. And just because it wasn't launching missiles in the past doesn't mean that it was not causing instability. It's just that now, because of the level of existential threat that Iran feels, it is upping the reaction. But the regime has always been hardline, and it hasn't become more hardline. It's always been hardline. And what they will do is double down because they see this as an existential war. So they want to control the Strait of Hormuz. They're not going to give that up willingly. Today, there were, some talks about potential mediation. Every now and then we hear about that to kind of reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Iran will never agree to that. They would rather die fighting. This is their model.
Yeah. Yeah. Good to speak to you, Lena. Thank you very much indeed for sparing the time. Lena Khatib there, Associate Fellow at Chatham House's Middle East and North Africa programme. Well, joining me now is an expert in international political economy of energy from the University of East London. That is Sam Rajewski. Sam, thank you for joining me. So Iran will never give up the Strait of Hormuz. There's a chance that they could start charging a toll fee for getting ships through. I heard $2 million per ship, which of course is a price that people will probably pay. It happened in the Suez Canal. But we're looking now at a situation where we're getting our last jet fuel tanker into Britain. Just how dire is this situation for us?
Hello, yes, good. Thank you for having me. I mean, the situation is becoming more difficult, and indeed, we have never been in this territory before. I mean, just to quote the International Energy Agency, which coordinates the energy policies of OECD countries or Western countries, you know, this is the largest disruption we have seen in modern times. There's never been anything like that before. So it's very difficult to find a parallel. We find parallels from the 70s, but they are not quite the same. And obviously, the economy is very different to the economy that we had before. But where we are now essentially is that, you know, you mentioned the charging of the tankers that are passing through. We have to understand the context. The context is that the Strait of Hormuz is very important, not just the passage, but it's almost like a motorway going both directions. And we depend on it not just for the oil. So I suppose that, you know, the price for that is being extracted from shipping companies is probably the least worry at the moment, because, you know, $2 million, as large as it may sound, in fact, it doesn't really translate that much into the final sort of price. Obviously, it is a burden, and indeed, you know, the shipping companies are unwilling to reconfirm that, and this is more of a rumor rather than an official statement, but we know that this is happening. But we also know that this is happening with some shipping companies, not all of them. So indeed, Strait of Hormuz remains closed. Now, obviously, the time is not on our side, because the longer this protracts, the greater an impact down the line. So it's, by the way, you know, it looks as if it's not stopping. We don't know exactly if it's stopping or not, but if it protracts, we are heading towards probably demand destruction. So in other words, an economic term for what happens when high prices for people, businesses would spend less. And indeed, this may have broader implications if it protracts for another few months. The main problem here is the flow rate, the fact that the oil is not flowing as it should be. So this is, in a sense, like a wave we are waiting for, a tide that we are waiting for, that is going to hit us at some point.
The other question is, again, it's mainly rumour, because that's about all we're getting out of the Strait of Hormuz at the moment. But there's also some conversations being held that Iran is saying that if you deal with us in yuan, in Chinese currency, if you buy your fuel in Chinese currency, then we'll allow it to go through. Now, this would be quite a strategically brilliant move by Iran to destabilise the petrodollar, which for the last 40 years, people around the world have had to trade in American dollars in exchange for security in the region, right? Military security in the region, which they seem to have failed at doing to some extent. Could we be seeing a turning point, a pivot point here on the petrodollar? Because if Saudi Arabia, UAE and all those other countries say, well, you didn't really defend us, so we're not going to deal with that anymore. And I know it's left open now, isn't it? It wasn't renewed.
I mean, we have to understand that the main export destination for oil from the Middle East is actually Asian markets, China in particular. So we had a few years ago this idea that the Saudis were flirting with, that perhaps some trade volumes would be settled in yuan. But at the time, this conversation was cut abruptly during the Biden's administration. Essentially, it's, you can't go that direction. You can't do that for obvious reasons. But at the moment, the crisis is changing pretty much everything. And we hear that the trade volumes are being settled in Chinese yuan. This creates obviously an important and a dangerous precedent. So this conflict, in fact, may lead to what, in fact, Iran tried in the past. So in a sense, to be less dependent on US dollars. That's because of the sanctions.
But there's lots of countries, aren't there, that would like to be less reliant on the dollar and would like a gold or silver-backed currency to be dealing in oil. But we can't underestimate just how vital it is for America that we continue to trade in petrodollars. If they lose that, even a percentage of that, you could see an economic collapse in the United States of America, couldn't you?
I mean, that's a very good point. And again, we've never been in this place before.
No,
it's very difficult to speculate. I'm not going to speculate here, but when you think of it, the dollarization of trade in oil sets a very dangerous precedent.
Yeah.
And as you rightly pointed, others might want to take this avenue because, at the end of the day, to buy oil, you need to pay with the dollars. And, not every nation has the ability to cover this cost. And indeed, the exchange rates may also have impact here. So, this is a very dangerous place. And I agree that, US dollar should continue be the trusted currency of international trade. And indeed, this is in fact in the interest of the US economy, broadly speaking. So I think that's this is very interesting development, and we should watch it very carefully.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you look at how much money, all the profit from the oil sold in Saudi Arabia is pumped into their stock market. So
Absolutely.
this would be a dire turn of events for America. Just finally, the other thing I wanted to discuss with you is Donald Trump saying we don't need the Strait of Hormuz, which is fundamentally not true, isn't it, in terms of petrol and things like that? The Americans import 8 million barrels a day, is it?
Well, I mean, we clearly see that there is a posture here, and there's a war of words, not only a war in exchange of missiles and destruction of energy infrastructure, but there is also a war of words. And I think that's ultimately, there are wider ramifications here to say that it doesn't affect the US. I mean, the US obviously is the largest oil producer on the planet, but it will affect the US, not just because of oil, but because of other important products that are shipped on this, as I said at the beginning, motorway. It's not just a passage, it's a motorway. We've been hearing about LNG being affected. We've heard about seaborne fertilizer.
Hydrogen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, all sorts
sulfur,
of products. Yeah.
half of world's traded sulfur. And, when you think of it, when you take helium on board, I mean, this affects the tech companies, US tech companies, if they don't have helium, then chip manufacturing is going to be affected. And obviously, we've heard the plans about, rolling out the digital transformation, and all the tech companies having a driving seat, highly valuated on the Wall Street. This has wider ramifications. To say that
they won't be affected.
It's a bit redundant. It's more posturing, I would say, more than anything else.
I mean, we didn't have time either to talk about the Yanbu upping their oil, and there's so much in this conversation. But and also, of course, the Houthis in Yemen, that could deprive us of millions more barrels if they close the Gate of Tears as well. But let's get you back. Will you come back? We'll continue talking about this.
Absolutely.
There's so much, isn't there, now to discuss on this. Sam, thank you very much indeed. A real pleasure to discuss that with you. Sam Rashevsky. I've got a problem with my teeth today. Quick break, back in a second.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good evening to you. I thought that was really, really interesting, particularly about the oil. There's so much going on with oil at the moment, and of course it's going to affect us massively, hugely. I mean, it already is, right? And we could be looking at a state of rationing, particularly if the Houthis get involved. They're talking about bombing ships on the Red Sea, which accounts for about another 6% of global oil. So I mean, that would be disastrous if the Houthis, who are backed by Tehran, if they got involved, then we're looking at a domino effect of more and more strangulation on the global economy, which will also worry countries like Japan, who are massively reliant on that oil coming through the Strait of Hormuz. So Donald Trump is saying, as was easily predicted, I mean, just like, oh, really, what a shocker, he's going to cut and run. If he does cut and run, then that leaves the entire region in an absolute mess. If he puts boots on the ground and destroys oil facilities around the region, that creates even more of a mess. And somebody has told Donald Trump that he doesn't need the Strait of Hormuz, that he's not reliant on it at all, so he doesn't care. He's wrong. He is absolutely wrong. Internal US prices of jet fuel, diesel, fertilizers, sulfur and aluminium are all shaped by the Gulf through global markets. And I keep saying that. It's not Donald Trump that owns the oil in America. It is the oil companies that extract it. They sell it onto the global market, so they are as much at risk of price increases as we are. Iran would control a third of the world's helium shipments, giving it a partial stranglehold over critical input for semiconductors. So the whole of Silicon Valley is affected by this. So I don't know who's talking to him, but Trump told Britain today, get your own fuel from the Gulf. He says he doesn't need it, and he's just going to leave the mess that he made. So I'm just wondering how you feel about that. Do you think that he's right to say the things he's saying? Like, you'll have to start learning how to fight for yourself. The USA won't come to help you anymore. And that's not just about the Straits of Hormuz, is it? I think that's also about Russia, which, as I said, is signalling the end of the NATO alliance, which in turn is going to make Russia and China very, very happy. So, really, I guess I'm just asking you, do you support Donald Trump? Do you think that he's doing the right thing? Look, he's done the hard work. He's annihilated Iran. He's made it very difficult for them to... But he hasn't killed the idea. That's the problem. It is as hard line and more vengeful and hateful to the West than it was before, if that is possible. And yes, Iran have always been a danger to us, but now I think they know that they have power over us, and that is with the Strait of Hormuz. So we'll talk about that at midnight, just to get your views on it, really. But if you'd like to earn some money, just win a bit of money, just to make life a little bit better for you. We're giving you a chance to win 20 grand, completely tax-free here on Talk. That's £20,000 straight to your bank account. Spend it, save it, splash it. I'd save it right now. It's entirely up to you. Here's how you could win.
For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close 9th of April 2026, 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talk.tv/win. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good evening. This is Talk and it's Petrie with you. Just a reminder that Amy Fisher will be in the studio at the top of the hour. And if you're heading off to Europe for your Easter holiday, you're going to want to listen to Simon Calder. So he's up as well in about 15 minutes' time. But first of all, today, when Trump told us that we'll have to start learning how to fight for ourselves because America's not going to help anymore, was the day that Buckingham Palace confirmed that King Charles and Queen Camilla will meet Donald Trump next month in the US. Full details of the itinerary in the US have not been released, although we know it will include Washington, D.C. It will be the first UK state visit to the US since Queen Elizabeth II's visit in 2007. The US is marking its 250th anniversary of independence this year, and that will be a significant focus of the trip. Meanwhile, the Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna, who co-sponsored a law that compelled the US Justice Department to release the Epstein files last year, is calling on the King to privately meet the paedophiles' victims. What good will that do? And would that put the King in an awkward position? I mean, we've got to remember that his brother has not been charged with anything to do with that side of the Epstein files, right? And he's denied any wrongdoing. Rupert Bell, I'm thrilled to say, joins me now, Talk's royal correspondent. Rupert, it's going to be awkward, isn't it, for the King? I mean, he's just had his navy slagged off by Pete Hegseth today.
Well, and let's be honest, Donald Trump's not been shy in coming forward on what he thinks of our armed forces. So he's been having a pop at everything British except for the royal family. Obviously, he's had a pop at the Prime Minister. So it's a fraught diplomatic time, yet he does seem to value his link with the royal family. He said how much it meant to him, not only the state visit that he had with the Queen, but obviously he's had a state visit to this country. Remember Starmer going with that invitation saying, come and see us. And, you know, so it is an interesting dynamic because on the face of it, on the political level, it's not a great time because Donald Trump doesn't seem to have much time for Keir Starmer and his government, yet he values the royal family coming over. But if you just take the politics out of it, there is a symbolic, you know, it is 250 years since independence. So if you could just take all that away, you actually say this is a significant celebration in terms of American history, their independence from Britain. So it's a sort of a difficult one because obviously Donald Trump will no doubt grandstand and enjoy it and sort of there'll be a state banquet. I think he's also going to be talking to Congress. So for the King, it will be a very symbolic trip, but there will be, as it's going to be towards the end of April, a lot of undercurrent of politics and will test the soft diplomacy of the monarchy, given everything else that is going on a much louder scale. Yeah, I mean, this is really tricky, right? Because this is actually when people, you know, knock the royal family. I would say, look, they do this really important work. So it is important. I get why Keir Starmer would want him to go. I get why, you know, that soft, it might just do something. But King Charles is a very intelligent man. He's a very informed man. He knows exactly what's going on. He knows exactly what Donald Trump has said. Is he just going to be a puppet there? Will he have to swallow his tongue? Will he have to just be this sap bowing down to the almighty Donald Trump? Well, if you look at all the other political leaders, they all have to, at times, seem to be bowing at the feet of Donald Trump, and that's what he wants. Yeah. But the King just might be able to pull off the odd sort of diplomatic coup because there may be a slightly different dynamic there. When it's a fellow political leader, Trump feels, well, I'm president of the United States, he sort of you may think that he's probably playing the power game.
Yeah.
With the monarchy, it just might be a more subtle approach, but it will be very interesting how he plays it, given the fragile nature of the relationship between the two governments at the moment. And we can't sugarcoat that. But if the king can come in with a giant sticking plaster and maybe heal some of the wounds that seem to be gaping at the moment with regards to the relationship, then that can only be a good thing. But ultimately, it is, well, from a British point of view, it's America celebrating 250 years of independence from Britain, but they still do see the ties between the two countries, while seemingly fraught, are still very, very deep. And maybe this is a way of cementing that deep relationship, while a short-term breakdown at the moment, and although it seems a pretty big one, maybe gives the king can go forth and do his job as he can, with a very sort of gentle hand on the tiller, and keep Trump in check. If it's only even for 2 days, sometimes sometimes feel it's only for 2 hours. But maybe however long this trip is, the king and queen can do their bit. We don't know who will be accompanying. Tends to be the foreign minister. Well, you would expect Yvette Cooper to be on hand as the foreign minister. But what other members of the Labour government will be in tow for a state visit, that remains to be seen. Will Keir Starmer accompany the king? That again may be something to look out for. But ultimately, that you'd think probably the Yvette Cooper would be the person representing the British government during this state visit.
And what do you make of this? I think it's a rather odd request, but this Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna asking for the king to meet with Jeffrey Epstein's victims.
Waste of time. It just sort of, I think there's an element of grandstanding there. In a way, because the problem is, well, I'm not defending Andrew or Sarah Ferguson or Peter Mandelson in any way. You do at times feel that they are the sort of low-hanging fruit that everyone's beating about in saying they're the sort of the poster people for the Epstein scandal. Now, where is the people in America that are being given the same level of scrutiny as Andrew has been given, as Peter Mandelson has been given, as Sarah Ferguson? And as you say, they have not been found guilty of anything.
And that would almost be an admission, wouldn't it, that Andrew was somehow involved in that sex trafficking, which he has obviously always denied. But if the king were to meet the victims, that message is counter to the what's going on legally and what's the denials.
Absolutely. But, we do know that Queen Camilla has made statements about being herself when she met my racing correspondent colleague John Hunt recently. She talked about how she was subject to abuse as a 17-year-old on a train as a young woman. So she is fully aware. But actually, they've got to make sure that in a way they keep themselves separate from the Epstein scandal. Even though, of course, there are going to be question marks of, what did the king know? And what did Andrew keep from his family? And look, and all those emails are clearly, some of them, just unedifying in the extreme. And while at the same time, we don't know the full details, but for the king to even be... I think it definitely is grandstanding from this particular politician, where actually maybe they should be looking at their own people within America and getting them to be accountable, because at the moment the Epstein files, we're not quite sure what's going on. As I say, I think it does seem to be that Andrew is the sort of the one that they easily can bring out something else about. But I'm not saying anything he did is wrong. I'm certainly not agreeing with some of his things that he's done. But I think America needs to actually look at internally and work out what's going on with its own reaction to the Epstein files.
I completely agree with you, but that's also distraction, isn't it, from it as well, to blame other people. I just want to touch on with you as well the fact that Beatrice and Eugenie are not being invited or not going. I suppose that is really important, whether they've refused to go or they've decided not to go or have not been invited to Easter with the royals. Is that just another knock-on from the Fergie and Andy stuff?
I think yes, because in a way, what will happen is if they turn up, that will be the PR, that will be the story. Whereas the King probably wants a sort of easy PR win. Now, there is talk that the Prince and Princess of Wales will turn up at the Easter service in Windsor when they weren't there last year. So you can almost see that if that's the case, if they are there and the King is there, they're getting the tight-knit family on hand to be there. And we don't need a distraction of whatever the Eugenie and Beatrice's role, knowing what they knew. Of course they were involved, what their mother was even remotely thinking and saying that they should have been going so soon after he was released when they were just 18 and 20 years old. I do not know. So I just think it's from a PR perspective. Remember, it's a sort of private function, but with a public twist, just like Christmas Day. So I think they really want to make sure that the optics are without any distractions, and it's actually the sort of core members of the royal family who are the working ones are on show for all and sundry, rather than the sort of, the Beatrice and Eugenie, however much they may want to be there. I think the PR people and the King and everyone realise for now, we don't need them in a forward-facing environment.
I mean, just briefly, are we starting to see them being phased out, do you think, on a more permanent basis?
Well, they're not actually working royals anyway.
No.
So, they've got their own jobs. They've got the small families. So in a way, of course, they still have Prince and Princess But that was Andrew's sense of entitlement, whereas you look at other members of the royal family, they've sort of gone, let's just try and give them as normal life as possible. So they're always going to be in the unnecessary spotlight. And of course, there's been question marks about some of the trips that they've been on, had they been Andrew or whatever, allegedly, where did they get all their funds from? But now they just need to probably concentrate on trying to regroup, because you look at it, suddenly find your parents are in a firestorm. If you look at it from a family point of view, that's a tough call. And so they need to sort of basically keep together with their families, their small children, and just keep a very low profile for the sake of the royal family as well.
Well, the sake of all of us, Rupert.
Well, possibly, Petrie, but
you wouldn't possibly comment.
No, but I do know people who know, and I've got family members who were at university with them, and they said they were really nice, normal people who just got on with their lives. But unfortunately, they've been dragged in and but were naive at times with their behaviour, because, they're loyal to their mum and dad, that has put them in this difficult position.
Awful position.
Yeah.
Rupert, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Rupert Bell there, Talk's royal correspondent. Quick break, back in a sec.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it's Petrie here with you, and just a reminder that Amy Fisher will be here at the top of the hour to go through the papers. But now, are you heading off on Easter holidays? Are you planning to go over to Europe, across the Channel? Well, a new European entry and exit system comes into full effect in April, and travellers have been warned they could be facing long delays at the border. Under the new rules, all passengers without an EU passport will be required to have their fingerprints registered and their pictures taken. These will be captured on first entry into the Schengen zone and will then be checked at every subsequent entry and exit. EU nationals entering the UK have been required to fill in an electronic travel authorisation since April of last year at a cost of £20. Well, Britons travelling to Europe will need to fill in a European travel information and authorisation system. They really know how to make these sound sexy, don't they? In ETIAS in advance at a similar cost, and it will be valid for 3 years. Well, joining me to discuss this is Simon Calder, a travel correspondent at The Independent. Simon, good to see you. It's been a while. Simon, this is significant because up until now, countries could pause this if at busy times. So if the queues are really long, the country could decide to pause this system and put people through a normal system, but now that comes to an end. Is that my understanding?
Look, Petrie, you have perfectly defined exactly what is proposed to happen. What is actually going to happen, though, is something really quite different. This is turning into an absolute Euro shambles. If I may explain, yes, on the 12th of October, the rollout of the entry-exit system began. And as you say, on the first encounter with a Schengen area frontier, and remember that's the EU minus Ireland, but plus Iceland, Norway and Switzerland, on first encounter, you do the four fingers of your right hand, and you do your facial biometric. After that, you then just probably do the facial biometric. That's the theory. And mind you, they continue to stamp passports and will do for at least another 10 days. Then from the 10th of April, everybody is registered on the entry-exit system. Or are they? It has turned into something which the European Commission insists is mostly successful, with a few problems created by the member states, not by the European Commission. But what does it mean for you as a traveller? Sometimes, depending on the airport that you were going to, you will be breezing through. They'll be well organised. They'll take your details. They'll put you on the system. You'll go in. You'll have a lovely holiday. You'll come out. There won't be long queues. That is the dream, and that's obviously what everybody wants. But we are seeing, and there is warnings from the representatives of airlines and airports in Europe, that there are going to be delays of 2 hours or more at popular airports, because this applies to all third country nationals who don't need a visa, and we're by far the most numerous of that category. And yes, there have been really long queues building up. As you say, they are allowed to say, right, we're going to pause this. Theoretically, it gets a little bit easier from the 10th of April because they stop stamping the passports. But guess what? I have learnt in the past few days that actually in a number of places, and that could well include Dover and Folkestone, where the French frontier police check everybody before they go out to France, that you won't be fingerprinted or have your facial biometric taken. They will just take all the details from your passport. You know what it's like when you go through and you hand over your passport and they skim it through a machine and then they've got all your details. That's all they will be doing, because they can't do the whole thing because it's not ready yet. And in other places, I am told, yeah, it's not working particularly well. And if we do need to suspend things, then we're just going to go back to stamping passports again. So it just drags on and it gets more complicated. And instead of being able to say, as we would love to do to all the fantastic talk audience, here's what's going to happen, I'm going to have to say, well, there's 3 or 4 different interpretations of what might happen, and frankly, good luck. I've got no idea what's going to go on.
I mean, that is
disastrous,
isn't it? I mean, that to not know what you're facing, and of course, there's a lot of people with kids and a 2-hour wait. I mean, just horrendous to go through all of that. Is the idea, Simon, that eventually biometrics would replace the need for any paper passport at all, that you just walk through an airport and they can register you, they know who's there and who isn't?
Look, that's exactly right. And you are brilliantly thinking 5-10 years ahead. And the future is already here in some airports, including Dubai, although you're not allowed to go there at the moment, according to the Foreign Office, and also in Indonesia. They've got really smart facial biometrics. And that, yeah, your face will become your passport, as it were. You will probably register at home before your flight. You'll walk into the airport, they'll say, oh, that's Petrie. Goodness, her passport photo doesn't do her justice. And off you go. And it should be friction free. The only caveat to that is that actually, talking to the head of UK Border Force, he said, look, it's actually quite good having a frontier where people know they're going to be checked, because that way you can keep an eye on them and see if there's any kind of changes in behaviour that raise suspicions.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's just breezing through with your face, and that's you. It is a unique identifier. Facial recognition is incredibly sophisticated now, and that will become the way. But for now, we've got to put up with palaver, as you say. Once the entry-exit system is working fully, heaven knows when that will be, well, then along the road comes the ETIAS, the European Travel Information and Authorization System. And it's going to get worse before it gets better, I'm afraid, Petrie. But get better it will. You've always got to be an optimist if you're going travelling.
Well, this is the Brexit bonus that everybody voted for, is this. But anyway, just before I let you go, Simon, I have to speak to you about this. Is that the last tanker of jet fuel coming to Britain for through the Straits of Hormuz? Just how disastrous is this for airlines, and what are we going to see in terms of pricing? We've literally only got a couple of minutes, but I'd love your view on it.
Okay, let me try to put minds at rest. If you're flying off over Easter, over April, it's going to be absolutely fine. I've talked to the bosses of the big airlines, and they say, "Yep, we got our supplies are safe." Don't worry too much about that last tanker coming in. Yes, it's the last tanker from Saudi Arabia, and that is a little bit concerning because to hear that. But as the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero says, we get jet fuel from America, from the Dutch, from the Nigerians. We can get it from lots of places, so don't panic. And I certainly wouldn't panic for any trips in April, so I will park that. In terms of cost, we're also actually very well protected because most of us fly on British Airways, Virgin Atlantic, Jet2, EasyJet, Ryanair, and all of those airlines have most of their fuel requirement hedged. In other words, they've locked in at a lower price. So, yeah, make the most of the next few weeks. You're going to be able to fly very happily. The summer probably, we hope, will just go along as normal. And then if the price of oil stays high, you will start to notice it in kind of towards the end of the year and certainly next year.
Okay, so for now, everything is okay. We're not going to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's a worrying time. And Pakistan's just said, help, if you're a pilot and you're flying in here, don't expect to be able to pick up all the fuel you might need. Bring loads with you. And that starts at midnight. So, yeah, that's worrying. It's much, much worse for Asia than it is for the UK.
Do you know, just very quickly, I remember one time being at Irkutsk airport in Russia on Ladies' Day, and all the pilots were drunk, right? Everybody was drunk. And they didn't have enough fuel, so they were siphoning fuel from one plane, or some planes, and shoving it into the plane that I was going to be flying, Aeroflot. Terrifying, absolutely terrifying. Hopefully we won't get to that stage.
I'm looking forward to swapping Siberian stories with you one day soon, Petrie.
It's a very interesting place, that's for sure. Simon Calder, pleasure to see you. Thank you so much for joining me. Right, true story, by the way. Coming up, it's Amy Fisher with the papers.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good evening to you. It is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. And coming up at midnight, of course, it is your chance to talk back. And I do want to talk to you about what Donald Trump said earlier on today. And we know that he might flip-flop, he might change his mind tomorrow, he might do, who knows. But basically, he said, you'll go and get your own oil from the Strait of Hormuz, he said. It doesn't affect him, he reckons, which he's entirely wrong about. You will have to start learning how to fight for yourself. The USA won't be there to help you anymore, just like you weren't there for us. Well, the only time that Article 5 has ever been triggered, NATO's Article 5, was on behalf of the United States. This war in Iran was not a NATO-sanctioned war. In fact, war was not even declared. Article 4 wasn't even triggered by Donald Trump, let alone Article 5, which would call us into action. So he's saying we weren't there for him, but in the only significant way, we were and always have been. But we know that Donald Trump is very thin-skinned, and he saw everybody saying, look, this is potentially an illegal war. This is, we can't get involved with this to the level that you'd want us to, but we will be there to defend our allies in the region, which is exactly what Britain has been doing, and France, of course, and other European NATO countries. However, do you think that the idea... like I said, you could see this was so obvious, as the entire rollout of this war has been, to anybody who's got even the slightest knowledge about what goes on in the Middle East, that he was going to do this, that he was going to, at some point, go, right, I've done my bit, over to you. You fix it, after he's broken it. And many of you are actually agreeing with what Donald Trump is doing. But do you agree with him abandoning us? Or do you see that as quid pro quo? I mean, that's the thing. I suppose he's going, well, you didn't help me, I'm not going to help you. But he hasn't quite understood that Silicon Valley will collapse without stuff that comes down the Strait of Hormuz. His buddies in all of these tech companies, these tech bros, they're going to start applying pressure to Donald Trump because they're in his pocket, or he's in theirs, whichever way around you want to look at it. Even companies like Palantir, they need what comes through the Strait of Hormuz. It may not be the oil per se, but he does need petrol. I don't know what you think about this. Do you think that we are strong enough to fight for ourselves in any regard? And do you think that NATO is about to collapse? Because with Donald Trump saying that, America's out, I mean, this could be a foreshadowing of the end of the NATO alliance. Because he's going to say, well, NATO wasn't there for me when I needed them. But this wasn't a NATO situation. NATO is a defensive alliance. If America had been attacked, NATO would have been there. But America wasn't attacked. America attacked Iran. So there was no business for NATO to be involved in. That is not what NATO is. It is not what NATO was designed for. So if he's blaming NATO for this, he has wildly misunderstood what NATO is. And the reason that NATO came to his aid, or America's aid, not him, he wasn't in power then, with Iraq, was because of 9/11, an attack on American soil. I mean, as we know, that was now an illegal war, but, forget that bit. So what are we going to do without America? Can we survive without America? I mean, my reckoning is we only have to really survive a couple of years, because he can't live forever, can he? Can he? He's already talking about Trump 28. I think I might cry. Anyway, give me a call. 0344 499 1000. A call's charged at national rate, but we do call you back. And send me a message as well. 87222. Can we survive without America? Can NATO... Well, NATO can't, but can Europe survive without America? Russia's going to love this, by the way. Love it. So will China. But there you go. With me in the studio to discuss this and the papers is fabulous Amy Fisher, former Director of Comms at the Conservative Party. Right, what a day.
Well, I'm just sort of slightly struggling to get over the literal physical shudder I had when you mentioned Trump 2028. I mean, it was just a horrifying prospect. And, we've just had another week, another, sort of day of just... again, it comes back to a sort of, something we've discussed before, is what is so difficult with Trump is that I just have no read on how much he believes anything he's saying at the moment he says it. So again, with this, he's had a kind of latest hissy fit, which sounds like I'm downplaying it, but, he's had this latest rant about you guys are by yourselves, sort your own oil out, I'm done. Is he about to flounce off? And as you have just said, having broken everything, now just kind of leave it in any sense of abrogation of what he even thought his own responsibility in starting the illegal war at the outset might have been. But then at the same time, we've still got all of these reports of preparations to send, potentially thousands of, troops, literally boots on the ground. So again, it's just a kind of morass of difficulty to try and pick whichever way any kind of Trumpian wind might be blowing. At the moment, he picks up and starts tapping on Truth Social and social media. So as I say, it's just very difficult to actually get a real read on what his latest sort of
or what victory
has been, what victory even for him might look like.
What it might look like, and I think for him, it looks like, right, we've bombed all the sites we want to bomb, we're off, and he can sell that to the American people by saying, right, we've decimated this regime, which of course they have not. Right, they have not decimated this regime. They are as hardline and angrier and more vengeful than they were before,
and still essentially control all the levers of power, albeit that they have been physically bombed to smithereens. It is not the case
that's any of that. It's like the Houthis in the Red Sea. If they decide to get involved from Iraq and destroy, even if they just hit one ship, that will freeze the Red Sea as well. That takes away another 6% of global oil. And the whole idea that he's going to smash this whole area up and then but what is his victory? His victory is just to walk away and say, well, we don't need the Strait of Hormuz, which I'm afraid he's going to find out very quickly that he does.
Yes, well.
And also, I don't know why people aren't telling him that, because...
Well, I assume people are, Petrie, but this is the problem, because he just doesn't listen to everything. And this is the mitigating factor against, yes, as I've just referred to, the apparent still ongoing plans for potentially thousands, if not even 10,000, as some outlets are reporting, American boots literally being on the ground. And as I say this sentence, I can almost sort of half see your eye roll, because I'm going to have the same one as I produced it. But even Trump can't be so stupid as to not realise this could be his Vietnam. If he ends up putting all these American boots on the ground for a war that was illegal and had no clear mission statement from the outset, and certainly no sort of strategic plan in whatever form it continues to be ongoing, let alone any exit strategy. But the only exit strategy is the one that you've just described, which allows him to leave in some way that saves face for his domestic audience. And as I say, despite in the reports, as soon as any actual troops go on the ground, even he must realise that that's not a situation that can end well. I mean, he must realise that. That was the eyeball rule. I was waiting for.
Trump's on air at the White House right now, live, and he says we'll be leaving Iran very soon. That's the latest line that's come out. But I just don't know how you sell that as a win to anybody, because what has been achieved
apart from destabilising
send
everybody's oil, diesel, any kind of energy cost up
for potentially decades to come.
Yeah, and also, if we're being really brutally realpolitik about it through a Trumpian lens, I'm not sure it's even particularly helped his relationship with Netanyahu, because that's one of the elements to this, right? Is quite why he's going along in such, quite literally brother in arms.
Well, they were in lockstep to begin with, but I've been questioning that for the last couple of weeks. They appear not to be.
But this is what I mean.
Yeah.
So it hasn't even.
No.
So even in terms of that relationship, and however Trump conceived that relationship to be special of some kind, it's not even clear to me what this has done for that. So it is very hard to see, kind of on any level, what he thinks this has brought him. Internationally, in political relations, geopolitical sort of commitments, or otherwise. It's just very odd. Like, I just don't see what any part of his plan was. And then even if it's not a plan I agreed with, and even whether, you know, I supported an illegal war or not, like, I don't even know by his own definition what he's achieved here.
Well, I mean, I've got a statement here. The US President, obviously, speaking, like I said, in the Middle East now. I mean, he's just said that Iran's not even shooting at us, which is, again, fundamentally not true. We see that all the time. But anyway, he said, repeating comments given earlier to our US partner network, NBC News, Trump says the US will be leaving Iran very soon. Trump said his main goal for the war was to ensure Tehran could not develop a nuclear weapon. That's been achieved. That is fundamentally untrue. They still have their uranium. They still have the brains and the ability to make a nuclear bomb, and now they're probably more determined to produce that nuclear bomb.
Yes.
Yeah, and so this uranium is hidden. They would have to seek it out, but he has not achieved that. He said, now we're finishing the job. I think in 2 weeks or maybe a few days longer, we'll do the job. We want to knock out everything they've got. He says there could be a deal between Washington and Tehran before then, but it doesn't matter if they come to the table or not. We've set them back 15 to 20 years. They have no navy, no military, and no air force, and they have no leaders. Again, completely misunderstanding that the regime in Tehran is a hydra. It doesn't need a leader. It's not like just knocking out one person,
or even knocking out the navy, whether we believe he has actually destroyed or not, or any of these other things. That's always fundamentally not under standards. You said it's the serpent, you cut the head off and another one's
one's there already.
Crops out just because you may have appeared or he's wanting to interpret it appear to have destroyed physical things like the navy, as he's saying, the air force. That is to fundamentally understand the basic of the structure of the regime there in a way that I just find baffling. But weren't we going around these houses but a week ago though, when he was saying there's been a great prize, we might be having a sort of ceasefire. They wanted 7 days, I've ordered them 10, it's all about to be over. I mean,
and also the prize
was
Pakistani ships going through the Strait of Hormuz, and the understanding is they paid $2 million a go to get the ship through.
Yeah, so these are boys. So
there wasn't a prize at all. It wasn't a gift to Donald Trump at all.
These are sort of boys that we've circled round before, and as ever with Trump, he sort of gets slightly marched up to the top of the mountain, but no one's quite sure where the mountain is. Or what height the mountain is until Trump chucks something else out there.
He's not understood that Iran has been preparing for this for 40 years. Israel have been trying to get a president to take part in this for 40 years. Yes. And every other president has acknowledged that Iran is a danger, but was told about the repercussions of this on global economies, and have swerved it. Like you say, they have swerved it. And then you've got a situation now where they're asymmetric war. They've got people building drones in their kitchens. They have. There's not just a factory
this is what
that you blow up.
He misunderstands.
Completely misunderstood.
Going after one physical target. That. He does see
There's people
that
with woodsheds building drones. There's people, all over the country, in the mountains.
He doesn't sort of understand the sort of diffuse nature of all of these.
And that's why they've done it. They've deliberately done it to spread things around the country, so that there isn't one central place that you can bomb. And that also goes for leadership as well. Tunnels and hideaways in the mountains, and they've got it. And the whole coastline with the Strait of Hormuz is completely covered by them. They know exactly what they're doing with remote control boats and things like that, and they're not going to give up the Strait of Hormuz even if Trump does one.
Well, no, quite.
They realise the power they've got.
But to me, it was always so obvious that closing the Strait of Hormuz was clearly going to be the really very big lever that they had.
Well, they've done it before.
Well, this is what I mean. So even
history tells us.
So even in and of itself, that was a very obvious thing.
And apparently he was told about it. But Israel, from what I've been reading, Israel told him, they said, look, don't worry about that. It won't come to that because we'll decapitate the regime and they won't even try to strangle the Strait of Hormuz. Don't worry, it'll be done in a couple of days. Apparently, that's what I've been reading, is that Israel said, no. What they're telling you is if this goes on a bit, but it won't go on because we're going to do that.
Well, there's obviously the main big problem with that, which is not true.
It's not true, and never was.
But there are other problems in that. So, if that, according to reports, was what Israeli intelligence, he was then being told that, what was his own military-industrial complex and their intelligence network saying?
Well, they've sacked most of their...
Well, they have, but this again is going to how vulnerable Trump has made himself by when he came in, sacking... Although the American system is quite different from the civil service we have here. The whole point of the civil service in GB is that always the machinery of government carries on going, literally for continuity. In America, there are always many more political appointments, but if you've surrounded yourself by yes men to such a degree that even at this pinch point, literally at the moment you're thinking about whether to start the precursor or the lead up to World War III, to have your own defence and intelligence capabilities are either so weak they literally don't have anything that counters the Israelis, or they're so cowed they daren't tell you the president. Either one of those things must be true, and both of them are terrifying.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more. It's, I mean, the White House the other day, I don't know if you saw this, I think it was in the Oval Office, I think it was, but he was standing at a podium and talking about the war in Iran, and he said, I shouldn't really say this, but I'm going to say it. Pete Hegseth and General Kane were really upset at the idea of a negotiated settlement. You were disappointed, weren't you? You were really disappointed. They don't want us to negotiate. They don't want us to settle. So you just get the impression that they're just... Pete Hegseth is enjoying this way too much, in my view.
Sort of man with a
and General Kane is a Trump, is a forever Trump. So I mean, this is the situation we're in. They don't want to negotiate a settlement because they're enjoying their big boys' toys, and it's terrifying.
Yes, it is, and that's always been the problem. Yes, with the US, military-industrial complex, and these guys unite being there.
But then you've got Hegseth, who was basically did the same job as me.
He's got a slightly strange personal and political checkered history, shall we say. There's a few
put it that way.
blots on his copy book there.
Anywho, let's take a quick break. Amy and I'll be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, this is Talk, and it's Petrie here with you, and with me is Amy Fisher, former Director of Comms for the Tory party. Let's start with the Times. Children incentivised to get ADHD and autism diagnosis. A lot of people actually agree with this.
So the article goes on to say that nearly 1 in 10 young adults self-identify as autistic, and there's been particular increases actually for girls. But it then actually does refer that historical analysis shows that behaviours in children once regarded as within the range of normal variation, or even something to be welcomed in some contexts, are now more often interpreted as requiring interventional treatment. Well, I think that's the problem, isn't it? Like, certainly where a child has got any kind of issue, be it in this case, potentially ADHD or autism diagnosis, nobody would want to see that child go without a proper, support and intervention if required. But I think, I certainly have this sense myself that everything is now getting a label put on it, and there's going to be some sort of pill or something to fix it.
And this happened in America, didn't it? First, and that children were being medicalised.
And what tends to happen in America
always comes here.
Always comes over here with a slight, sort of 5 or so, time lag. And there has been this massive increase in drugs being prescribed for, Ritalin is one that everyone knows for ADHD and stuff. And, there is part of it that thinks, let's not keep, handing stuff out to kids if yes, they are, got a lot of energy and, want to do different things, because you know what, they're children.
That's the thing, is attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder. Every toddler that I've ever met has got attention deficit and is hyperactive. Because they're two.
They want to run around and be sticking their fingers in everything.
Absolutely.
And all of this kind of thing.
And all the way up until, 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds also, wanting to, they get bored. Yeah. All of that. And I do think we're over-medicalising. And, of course, this has a massive effect on the welfare budget.
Yes,
this has a huge effect on the education budget.
But also just something
and on
about
local councils.
All of that in terms of the sheer, cost ring involved therein, but also just the children sort of be labelled with something, as I say, like, let children be children. Quite often, as you say, at the younger ages, you are doing sort of mad things.
But there's so
and
many
running
benefits to having a child that has been diagnosed, because you get extra time for exams, you get extra help with lessons, you get, in some cases, you get PIP for children with ADHD, and there's a lot of positives to going, little Johnny's got...
I understand that, but look, if you talk to teachers about this specific issue at primary school, because I have friends in that sort of profession, if they're being at their most candid about it, they will say a lot of the issue, with the kids that they have in their class is nothing to do with ADHD or autism. They're just quite badly behaved. They are sort of turning up at school, and they haven't, really necessarily had, dare I say, a sort of proper breakfast, or had to wash, or, necessarily have a kind of home background where, you don't shout over other people. You don't, hit the other kid if you want its toy. They're just kind of badly behaved. It's nothing to do with needing to diagnose them and put them on a kind of spectrum requiring some kind of medical intervention. No, there's a certain element of, we wish some of the kids coming to school had been taught more strictly, in some cases, basic manners at home before they kind of turn up in the classroom and can be very disruptive.
Yeah. No, I think it's a really difficult one, because there will be children with quite severe mental health issues or cognitive or neurological issues, but it's by no means is it all of them that are being diagnosed.
But we see this sort of diagnostic creep, certainly, in areas of mental health as well. And now, quite often you hear people self-diagnosing as, I have depression and this sort of thing. And actually, sometimes I sort of want. And again, of course, if you have a mental illness, I'm certainly not saying, to pull your socks up and get on with it. No. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is, we do need to be a bit more savvy about understanding for society and understanding for ourselves that actually, if I'm having a bad day, it is possible I'm having a bad day because I've had a rubbish day at work, or I've argued with my other half or something, and because I feel sad and down and quote depressed that day, that doesn't mean I have depression. Yeah. Do you see what I mean?
I do, and I think that we are so keen to get rid of all emotions or bad emotions.
A normal human emotion, which will sometimes go from being very, very happy to other times when you have, as I say, had a probably even prolonged tough time. But there is this kind of seepage of wanting to apply long-term chronic labels to everything, and I think that's quite dangerous. As we've just discussed, we see it sometimes with children just being children, and certainly up until the adult scale of sometimes things being labelled as sort of chronic mental health issues, when actually I just don't think
it's just life.
They're within the gamut of the human existence.
Yeah, I mean, there's a new one as well for teenagers, which is, I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically saying, refusing to do what you're told.
I mean, again, literally being a teenager.
That's what it is. But that is now...
sort of screaming.
It's called something like parental refusal syndrome.
No, that's literally you being a stroppy teenager.
Yeah, I agree. But that is now being classified as a neurological condition. It's absolutely, I agree with you. I think it's absolutely so wrong. We've just got to get used to the fact that actually some days are pretty
grim,
pretty rubbish, and other days aren't. The other story here, spy suspect's MP wife was all over senior naval officer. Whenever I see senior naval officer, I always check to see it's not my brother.
Oh.
Well, he was at Faslane as well, naval base.
Well, this is a pretty sort of tawdry story. So there is this Labour MP, a couple of weeks ago, it came out that her husband, who is, I believe, a lobbyist, is under investigation of being involved in a nefarious way with China and spying. So sort of actually entirely separate to that, because it's sort of nothing to do with alleged spying. This particular MP sort of euphemistically, as the paper is putting it, got carried away at a drinks reception at a naval base in Argyll and Bute, and was then rather friendly, all over the senior naval officer. So the headline sort of wedged a few things in there, but actually, irrespective of whatever her husband may or may not have gotten up to with regards to spying for the Chinese, this just sounds like an MP having several glasses of wine too.
They are very generous, the Navy, with drinks and offering them. So, but it literally could be my brother, because it's Faslane and it's where he was on a nuclear sub.
Okay.
I'll have to phone him, find out. And the other story, get your own oil. But the cost of filling a car now has surpassed £100.
That's madness. That's absolutely madness. And not madness. I mean, what this article also references is that the King's and Queen's state visit,
yes, which has been confirmed to go ahead today.
Go ahead at the end of April. And there's, the time of it was all sort of mad, because on Tuesday, that was the fact that the visit was still going to go ahead literally was confirmed an hour before Trump went on his rant about you sort yourselves out. Yeah. So, none of it was planned, the way these things just happen sometimes, but that was a bit ouch.
Yeah, it was a bit ouch. And also, it's just like, I could just imagine the King, who, like I said, I think he's a very intelligent, switched-on guy.
He can't be looking forward to this.
He must be just thinking, well, I've got to do it because that's my job. We all have those moments, don't we? A quick break. Amy and I'll be back in a second.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk. Now.
Hello, very good evening to you. It is Petrie here with you, and with me, the wonderful Amy Fisher, former Director of Comms for the Conservative Party. The Daily Mail, they've gone with Trump's taunt exposes a PM without a plan. Donald Trump told Britain to get your own oil yesterday, sparking questions about how the government plans to deal with the global fuel crisis.
Well, I mean, I'm not entirely sure. It does look like the government has a plan. And
well, I don't think they can until they know what Trump's plan is.
Well, I mean, in that sense, yes, indeed. I mean, obviously, it doesn't really help Keir Starmer, who has been on the receiving end of some of Donald Trump's other very personal insults, being, you know, no Winston Churchill. There has been this emergency meeting between the PM and
that's just show, though, isn't
the
it?
author. Look, I worked in government in a number of departments for a number of years, so it doesn't really matter whether you are in DEFRA, farming and rural affairs, and there's something that's upsetting the farmers, or something about food shortages or drought. What do? You call like a summit. It sort of doesn't really matter then, at the most serious end, whether you're in the Home Office and there's sort of some kind of hideous terrorist-related attempt. Once you've dealt with actual logistical immediate security concerns, you immediately convene a summit of community leaders.
Have you ever been into, was it Cabinet Office Briefing Room A?
I'm not allowed to say.
It's so sad that it's called Cobra and it's a really sexy name.
It's literally
and it
the name
literally
of the
means
rooms.
Cabinet Office Briefing Room A.
Well,
so there's a Cobra.
Yeah. I mean,
it doesn't quite work.
You're really not
Cobra.
up there with order of the day when you're relegated to Cobra Briefing Room number 2, but there we go.
So you can't say if you've ever been in.
I can't say. What I will say is that sort of
it's a dingy little space.
It never failed to sort of shock me. Obviously, I was going to say amazed, but I mean actually in a bad way. That sort of when you have a knowledge or an involvement in like these really serious, like top end of like government events, like they're always a bit rubbish.
Yeah, of course they are.
Like I remember, even kind of early-ish on, I had a very frank conversation with a member of the cabinet who I'd known for years. I was able to be really very blunt after they'd been to their first couple of cabinets. We're talking a long time ago about coalition. So literally this was the first time that, then the Conservatives, as I say, obviously in coalition, had gotten anywhere near the actual levers of power. And so this person was actually going to cabinet and was a proper cabinet minister. I remember saying to them, so is it really exciting? Like, what happened? Sort of turned and looked at him and went, no, it's quite boring. You sort of slightly want there to be a curtain that's going to be pulled back. That's where the really exciting bits of government are happening. And then you realise there isn't a curtain and we are literally it.
Oh dear.
And I'm afraid that sort of rather sums thing up. These very serious... I don't mean to be flippant about it, but obviously when these very serious things, in the Home Office, I mean, it is terrifying and you are actually desperately reassured by the incredible professionalism of, dare I say it, Secret Services, police and all the rest of it. But if we're taking things at slightly not that quite terrorist incident scale, other things you really are a bit like,
is this it?
My God.
I suspected it was like that anyway,
well,
to be perfectly honest with you.
Confirm that suspicion.
Yeah. I'm not the least bit surprised. I've had a few meetings at the Home Office and obviously just the public areas, and they were a bit rubbish as well. They've got no sense of humour.
No, I mean, there's that.
They've got no sense of humour. I tried to make a joke and saying that I wanted a code name and I wanted it to be Sparkle.
No, they wouldn't.
They didn't find that funny.
No, that wouldn't have gone.
No. Anyway. The other story, of course, and this was big yesterday as well, is the story about Scott Mills. We know now that the accuser back in 2018 was under 16. Why this suddenly has resulted in his sacking now, we don't know, but there is another story that says the BBC ignored warnings about Scott Mills a year ago, and it looks a little bit like they're not keen to get rid of their big celebrities, their big stars, of which Scott Mills was one of them, and will probably tolerate more rumours about them than they would, let's say, of about me when I was in the BBC and not a big star. But then it was, I don't know. I mean, I fear for Scott. I fear that this pile-on is going to be a lot. But then on the other hand, we don't have all the details.
Yeah. So this is day 2, as you say, of it being very much front page news. The various different reports in the various papers. There seem to be different strands. There's a lady who was kind of a freelancer who said that she's aware of an alleged another separate case, the one involving the underage boy that you just referred to. So look, there's no point particularly trying to divine at this moment who knew what when, because it's so confused. And it is all sort of
and it has to be said as well that there were no charges in relation to that accuser under the age of 16, and in fact the case was put forward by the police to the CPS, and the CPS have said there wasn't enough evidence. So we have to maintain that somebody is innocent until proven guilty.
I mean, the reality
except
is
in the court of public opinion.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. That this chap Scott Mills, has gone from being one of the biggest, most well-known, recognisable names, flagship programme at the BBC. I mean, he has been dumped by the Beeb, with then the commensurate financial implications for him. The court of public opinion. I mean, God knows what it must be like for literally day 2 in a row to see your face all over the front pages with all sorts of horrible suggestions of whatever it might be. So that's clearly not a pleasant story, and difficult again for the BBC to in such succession, because obviously Hugh Edwards was not that long ago, again, like the main guy that everyone knew from the BBC, having such a fall with ignominy.
And it's just the case, isn't it, that once you're cancelled, there doesn't appear to be any way back. And like we said, I have to say that there is no evidence that supports those claims, or there wasn't substantial evidence that supported those claims. We don't know about any other claims that come in, and somebody is innocent until they're proven guilty. But then you look at Philip Schofield, who didn't do anything illegal, but it was unwise. I think that was the term that was used. And he's gone. He was one of the biggest stars on television.
Yes, enormous.
And had about 6 different TV shows.
Yeah. And had been for years. Was literally like mainstay of primetime TV.
And he didn't even do anything.
No.
It was consensual and it was a very bad. I worked at This Morning during that time, and we all knew. I mean, it wasn't
particularly assumed.
No. I mean, and it wasn't like, because he was an adult, so it wasn't. Yeah. Anyway,
did you watch the Hugh Edwards?
I did actually.
I haven't.
You
yet.
haven't seen it yet?
Because every time I go and try and it's Channel 5, isn't it? Every time I try and go and watch it, I find Martin Clunes and how amazingly they've made him look like him with the sort of arched eyebrow and the hair. I just find it so creepily close to reality. I sort of go and watch it and I think, no, I'm just going to watch an episode of Friends instead.
Yeah, I think that Clunes plays it so well. I've said this from last week. I think he needs to win an award for it, because it would have been so tempting to overplay it, but he beautifully underplays it, and you just get a real quiet sense of
menace, dare I say?
What a bully actually that Hugh was. according to the young man from whose point of view this story is told. And again, there were no legal ramifications to that because the young lad was 17 years old, but it was the other things that got him a criminal record. But The Guardian, just very quickly before we go to the break, the NHS to offer weight loss drugs to 1 million more people. NHS England is to offer more than 1 million people weight loss drugs to reduce their risk of heart attack and strokes. It is semaglutide, which is Wegovy, is already available on the health service for some people living with obesity and also offered under the brand name Ozempic to treat type 2 diabetes.
All well and good, but I don't think we should be in a place where the NHS just says, have a jab that's going to solve everything. This would obviously presumably need to go hand in hand with things
support.
like support around, diet and nutrition
of it,
and
diet,
exercise, and not for it just be a kind of quick
but
fix.
This drug is a game changer, and I don't have any issue with it at all if it helps.
No, I don't either, as long as it's not done in isolation, as I say.
No, I completely agree with you on that. So there'll be a lot of people who are very pleased to hear that, because these drugs have been available for a while now and they just haven't been given out as much as a lot of people were hoping for. And the Eye, just before we go to a break, King sent to US on mission to salvage a century of friendship. So good luck to him.
Yeah, that's a sticky wicket. He sort of would slightly want to be a fly in the wall of whatever hotel or residence that the King and Queen Camilla are going to be staying in, because I should imagine her take on some of this is fruity.
Yes, I would imagine so. I mean, especially when I suppose today they were told, yeah, you're definitely going. I bet there were a few swear words thrown around the palace, but there you go. A quick break, and Amy and I'll be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it's Petrie here, and with me Amy Fisher, former Director of Comms for the Conservative Party, and the Telegraph. Every other story we've kind of covered, they've got those on there, but Navy not ready for war, says Sea Lord. That's not really that surprising, is it?
No, although, Navy, Rule Britannia waves has always sort of been the mainstay of the armed forces, the collective, and Britain's defence. So this is just piling more pressure. Well, it says pressure's piling on Starmer to raise defence spending. I mean, the government has already committed to raising defence spending and defence, being Starmer's top priorities. But then, as ever, that is the problem with being in government, is you will end up finding that you have any number of top competing priorities, yes, and they all cost a lot of money. So, on any
and they've all been kicked into the long grass. The
defence strategy and the imperfections of that and all the rest of it. And as I say, from one week to the next, Starmer is saying, Britain's security is my top priority. The next week it's, tackling the rising cost of living is my priority. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and of course there is an events element to it, but he really hasn't got his priorities, or at least any kind of coherent communication strategy, or let alone any of the principles of that the communication strategy should also actually be resting on in a coherent fashion.
Again, that he hasn't. You can't be all things to all people.
Which he has tried very hard to do, and has tested to destruction.
Yeah. And I think there will come a point where he has to say, look, everything else is going to have to be cut. We're going to have to spend it on defence. Sorry,
and
that's just the way it is.
Tension is going to be between defence spending and welfare spending.
Yes.
That is literally.
Well, yesterday we were talking about the fact that welfare people on benefits got a 6.2% pay rise yesterday. It's things like that we see. And there's going to have to be a crunch point. There has to be, and it's just a time for straight talking. And it may be that it's going to be, look, we're going to have to deal with this Strait of Hormuz ourselves. Yeah. We're going to have to put soldiers there. We're going to have to spend money in order to free up the economy, to sort the economy out. Yeah. The Metro, I started it, you finish it. A great headline there. This is obviously Donald Trump, President's new swipe at Britain, but he's looking forward to a terrific visit by Charles. He doesn't see that there's a compromise there at all, does he, Trump? He's just going, I hate Britain, but I love King Charles.
But also, I'd be so... I'm trying to apply sort of my rational logic to kind of Trump, but I'd be so mortified and embarrassed by the fact that this guy, the king, was basically sort of being strong-armed into coming to visit me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I feel so awful knowing that I was having somebody round for dinner who really didn't want to be there. Yeah. But none of these kind of social or emotional niceties seem to be anchors that he is burdened by.
No, he just is going, good, the king's coming. It's like there's no correlation there, or nothing joining it up. The Independent, again, Trump tells Britain, get your own oil. I wonder how quickly he'll change his tune when his tech bros start nagging him about helium. There you go. The Mirror, again, this is oil, your fault. That's not a bad headline. World pays for Trump lunacy. Unhinged Donald Trump told Britain to protect the Strait of Hormuz without him after his own shambolic war shut it down. The US president ranted at allies to go in and just take oil from the strait. Now America's done the hard work on Iran. You'll have to start learning how to fight for yourself. The US won't be there to help you anymore.
Yeah, the Mirror's gone to town on this.
Yeah, they really have.
And look, the photo of Donald Trump kind of dancing with his weird little man hands is not one that could ever be overused, because frankly, in these very dark times, maybe just have a British slightly sort of sideways taking that Mickey, look at it, is the only way
to do it. Yeah. And the voice of the Mirror says the government should cancel the King's visit to the US immediately. I don't.
I think the ship has set. Not to mix our awful metaphors, considering everything that's going on. I actually don't think one.
I think that's the King's job, right? That's pretty much his job, is the soft power.
And also, without sounding to school marmish, to sort of rise above it and actually, let's not go for some weird tit for tat. You said this, so I'm not coming. When it's the king's job.
It is the king's job. It is the king's job. I mean, that is what the royals do, isn't it? Otherwise, really, what's the point of them? It's all of that soft power stuff that is so important. The Sun newspaper, again, going with Scott Mills. Beeb knew about Mills probe. And of course, the Sun would do this because the Sun were the ones that broke the Hugh story as well, weren't they? And not that I'm likening Scott to Hugh. I just want to make that really clear. The only thing I'm likening them to is that they both were BBC presenters and both exposed in the Sun. But until there's evidence or proof, until Scott Mills has been through any sort of inquiry or investigation, he is an innocent man.
Yeah, and look, the Sun references his salary here, which was £360,000 a year. So I guess
it's about 30 grand a month, isn't it?
So if it's not already on some of the inside pages, I guess the questions about, is this money still being, how much is he going to be any kind of severance pay?
No. No, he was. My understanding is that he was paid up until the end of the week.
Okay.
But this is the lot of a presenter. You're on a contract which states that they can get rid of you at any point.
Oh, okay.
I mean, they literally they could phone me tomorrow morning and say don't come in, and it's as simple as that. And I've got not a leg to stand on.
Okay.
There's nothing, and as far as I'm aware, the BBC contracts will be. I mean, I signed a BBC contract. I think it was pretty much that. And there's also always the clause of bring
the disrepute. Yeah,
bring the company into disrepute, which is their get out of jail free card for any boss or any company.
And so Piers Morgan has weighed in here, just at the bottom there, saying, TV Piers Morgan has said on this, front page of Tuesday The Sun, the case was closed. Now he gets fired over the same thing. The BBC needs to explain why. Well, look, I don't actually agree with Piers Morgan on much, but that is probably a bit fair that sort of there are, as we've discussed, a few confusing or different strands.
Yeah, but apparently there was new evidence that came forward. And there is, or a witness came forward. My understanding was that the Hugh Edwards docudrama may have inspired somebody to...
Oh, okay, I can see. Now you've just said that, I can see how that would account for the timing of this, which sort of seemed to come a bit left field, but that...
That may have inspired somebody to say, well, I need to speak up.
Yeah.
But that's all rumour and supposition. But my understanding is that there was more information. That the Mirror said that the BBC sacked Radio 2 staff after receiving new information. Okay. So whether that was tied in with the Edwards docudrama or not, I don't know. But we will find out in the fullness of time. I just hope that he's being treated fairly and somebody's looking after his mental health.
Indeed.
The Daily Star.
It's brilliant. This is actually an even better photo than the one of
this is a
Trump
great
dancing.
Photograph, isn't it?
They've clearly done exactly what we just said, which is this is all so grim and so serious.
Awful.
The only way we can deal with this is to find the worst, most ridiculous photo we can find of the man baby and stick it on the front page, and that's what they've done. Relatively unapologetically.
Yeah, they said the incredible sulk. Donald Trump moans, go get your own oil. He claims, learn to fight for yourselves. You weren't there for us. And the king is still visiting him this month. It's now Trump is grumpy. Well, I mean, he never sleeps for a start. And
it's a terrible diet as well.
Yeah,
sort of McDonald's.
Awful. Yeah. But also, his poll rating is just plummeting in the US, and he's got the midterms coming up, so he wants this done and
plummeting amongst the Republicans as well. Let's be really clear about this.
Clear.
This is a war that is polarising.
Yeah. Well, because he fought on no more wars.
Both sides of the political divide. So this is a domestic political problem for him.
Huge problem.
Even amongst MAGA.
Yeah, a huge problem, and they're seeing their oil prices going up, and he's saying, well, it doesn't affect us. Well, of course it does, because they sell their oil onto the global market, so it's going to affect America as much
and
as
also
it...
they import a lot of things
They
from other
do,
countries
they really do.
that are going to become more expensive in a downstream effect.
4 times the petrol dependency per capita of the UK. So, yeah, they import 8 million barrels a day. So where he's going to import them from, I don't know. Anyway, I think that's it. I think we've done it, and that is the papers for Tuesday. And Amy Fisher, thank you very much.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
Thank
too.
you.
All right, stay where you are, because it's over to you next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello. Good morning. It is Petrie here with you, and I'm here for the next hour. And this is Talkback. This is a full hour that is just yours to comment, to get stuff off your chest, to say whatever you want to say about the topic of the day. And the topic of the day has to be, really, the Trump fallout. Trump tells the UK and other countries, go and get your own oil from the Strait of Hormuz. Trump tells us to go and get our own oil. Tensions intensify over the blockaded Strait of Hormuz. Now, I make no apology at all for my opinion of Donald Trump. This is an opinion-based radio station, and my opinion is that he is... Well, I can't say what my opinion is, but he has dumped us in the poop, and now he's getting ready to walk away, and I said he would. I called this 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks in, or 1.5 weeks in to what he was doing. And you'll know that because if you watch me regularly, you know I said it. I can see exactly what he's going to do. He's going to say, right, I've done my bit, over to you, which is exactly what he's saying now. It may not be, of course, exactly what he does, right? We have to be very clear on that. We have to be clear on the fact we can't be clear on what Donald Trump says. I am no fan of his. I don't like the way he's treating the American people. I don't like the way ICE killed 2 innocent bystanders. I don't like the way that he's treating migrants. I don't like any of that. When he said that he was going to go after the worst of the worst, he didn't. He went after everybody. And when he says no more wars, he meant 8 more wars, or however many countries he's bombed. I don't like him. I don't respect him. I don't think he's any kind of negotiator, and I think he is dangerous. There. That's my view. What's yours? You're welcome to have a different point of view. A lot of people do support Donald Trump. I've seen that in the messages, thinking that he's some kind of hero to the West. So I'd just be interested as to what you think about this, because fuel prices have rocketed. He was warned about this. He was told that if he bombed Iran with Israel, that the Strait of Hormuz would be taken. It's happened before, and everybody knew that it would happen again, which is why every other president in the last 40 years has not done what Bibi Netanyahu asked them to do, and that is to bomb Iran. Of course, it's in Israel's best interest that that is done. It is also in our interest that Iran doesn't get a nuclear weapon. But however Trump sees victory, this is not it. Just bombing the infrastructure of a country, it has not rid the Iranian regime of its desire to get a nuclear bomb. In fact, it's probably strengthened it. They've still got their uranium, which has been, what's the word for it? Not refined, been processed to 60% of what it's needed. It only needs to go up to 90% to be weapons grade. They've still got that. They've still got, even if you killed all the people who knew how to make a nuclear bomb, they're friends with Russia. They're friends with China. They'd just send them a PDF, wouldn't they? They've got highly intelligent people in Iran, incredibly well educated, and it won't take long until they're a threat to the West again. Trump says that his goal was to stop them getting a nuclear bomb, and he's done that. But he hasn't. He genuinely hasn't. And options are that on the table is that he goes to try and snatch the uranium. An intelligence-led paratroop, special forces led attack on Iran to try and go and get that. But that is fraught with so many difficulties. It's the size of a car. How do you get that out? How do you get that out safely? How do you get it out from without hurting the soldiers? How do you, if you can't get it out, how do you destroy it without creating a nuclear explosion? How do you deal with that? So I can't see a victory here. I don't agree that this is a victory, and I will never agree that it's a victory. This is asymmetric warfare. This is not what America is prepared for. And let me tell you that America may be a mighty armed force. The air supremacy, their sea supremacy, barely touched by anybody else in the world. But soldier to soldier, in a land war, we've already seen what happens when a country is fighting for its survival against a big giant, and that is Ukraine and Russia. There is no sensible person that would ever have thought that Ukraine would be in the position that it is still in today, 4 years after that war started. But the ferocity with which the Ukrainians are fighting is about passion, it's about land, it's about their country, and the Iranians will fight with the same fervour. And Ukraine could well beat Russia, this great giant. So in a land war, don't be banking on American supremacy, because they'll be sending soldiers. If they do put boots on the ground, those soldiers are fighting a war on behalf of Israel, and they are fighting a war miles away from home without the justification that this is going to make a jot of difference to America. even though they are tremendously professional, you can't beat fervour. So, with the latest we've got from America, you'll have to start learning how to fight for yourself. The USA won't be there to help you anymore, just like you weren't there for us. Do you think that we can possibly go it alone without America? And what do you make of this? He has made this mess that you and I are going to be paying for years. Years and years and years. But he's just smashed it all up and is talking, like I said, him talking about, doesn't necessarily mean he's going to do it, but talking about just walking away. I've done the hard bit. He thinks that's the hard bit. Give me a call. 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at national rate, but we do call you back. And you can text the word talk and your message to 87222, which many of you are doing. And I'll get to those in just a moment. First of all, John in West Lothian. Hello there, John. You think Trump's done a good thing for us?
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's always a pleasure to call you.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to hear from you.
Even if I disagree with you.
No, it's fine. We're allowed to disagree. We're called adults. We can disagree.
That's what I hope this thing is all about. Yes, I think that, I don't agree with everything that Donald Trump says or does. I've got to say that. But however, on this occasion, I think he's absolutely right. I think we've had people who were determined to bring down the West. They have said it openly many, many times. And the very fact that these people think that if they die in their cause, then they go to heaven, they're a martyr.
They're martyred, yeah.
They don't care about what they do. And the very fact that, in this country we've had, 20, 30 possible things that's been...
backed by Tehran, terrorist attacks backed by Tehran.
By the security services. And I'm very disappointed with our government, who has no backbone, who cannot stand up for anything without changing their mind. And, this is for, whether you agree with him or not, he believes, and I believe, that he's doing it for the benefit of the Western world, because these people are a threat to the Western world, perhaps not immediately, but they were building up to it, and as I say, they don't care what happens in the long term.
No, but I think that's what he's that's what he's underestimated. And again, I'm going to come back to this because I think that the country that benefits the most from this is Israel.
Yes, because Iran is threatened to, take them out from, the world altogether. They want to completely demolish Israel and everybody else. And, I do believe that if it succeeded with that, then the rest of us are the next step, that they will demolish all of us. They want to get rid of all of us.
I agree, and I do accept that, John. I do accept that Tehran and the mullahs and the theocracy were a real threat to the world. They were a threat to the Middle East as well. They're a threat to everybody, right? But I'm just wondering if this has changed anything about that threat, and except made it more vengeful and more hateful.
Well, no, I disagree with you, Petrie, because I think the very fact that Iran has now started sending the drones, rockets into, fellow Arab countries has actually just proved that they're not there for the benefit of the Arab world at all. They're there for themselves. And I think that the very fact that not one, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and all the rest of it, have not come out against America, I think proves the point how dangerous Iran was and is and could be even more so in the future. So I think actually it will actually benefit the whole region if the Americans and the Western world actually comes together with the rest of the Arab world and stops this regime now. Because
how? Because this bombing, this war has not stopped them.
No, not yet. but the fact that they are now targeting fellow Arab countries is
well. To be fair, I mean, I don't want to be fair, but the whole point is that they are bombing countries in the region that support American air bases, and what Iran wants to see happen is those security bases removed, which they won't be, right? Because the Arab states want that security there. Well, they did when they believed it provided security. Now it is just all it has done is acted as a magnet for Iranian aggression. And look, I completely agree with you that this regime needed to be destroyed. But I think that we're not understanding that you cannot destroy an idea, and you cannot destroy that fervour and that revenge and that anger. You know, I mean, when I was in Bosnia, for example, you would see generational boys in a family killed, even a baby, and I'd say, why would they kill the baby? And they say, because that boy will grow up and become a soldier. So they killed the whole family, right? So I don't know how you kill. I don't know how you bomb your way into changing Tehran, right, because it seems to make them even more dug in. Yes, certain people it absolutely will. But I think the vast majority of the Iranians, and certainly, you know, I've listened to so many reports from Iranians in this country and around the place, they all want this regime brought down. So I think, and I appreciate that the biggest problem that they've got is that the IRGC they've got the weapons and the people haven't. But I've never heard one genuine Iranian who would not support what is being done. Well, to be fair, again, about 55% of the nation support the mullahs, which leaves 45% of the population that want to see a change. Well, I think that statistics can be used anyway, as was used in Gaza and all the rest of it. I think it depends on which reports you actually read. But I think the vast majority of people want a regime that is... They killed so many of their own people. Oh, yeah. I mean it's a disgusting... It's an absolute disgusting regime, but I just keep coming back to, how does this make things any better? Well, you know, because if Trump's going to declare victory, the victory isn't in preventing them from getting a nuclear weapon, because they still have the uranium. And even if that uranium was taken away from them, they've got friends in North Korea, they've got friends in Russia, and they've got friends in China. They will restock that uranium within a matter of months. Well, you know, that is not, and they're highly intelligent people, incredibly well educated, a lot of them educated in Britain as well, the higher ups. They can go back and build a nuclear weapon at any point. This is what I'm saying. I don't know whether this bombing is the way to do it. Well, you know, I would disagree with you, because I think that these people have been almost forced into supporting them. I mean, what is the alternative, though, for the Western world? You know, if we give in to bullies, then they will take command. The difference between Iran and Russia, which is Putin's a horrible man, but he knows that if he pushes it too far and he attempts to push that button, he will be wiped out. The difference between him and the Iranians is they don't care. They don't care. Yeah, I agree. But I think that's where the underestimation has come in. That Trump thought that, you know, he could just decapitate the leadership and the whole place would fall, and not realising that the leadership, it's a hydra, and they've been planning this for decades. They've got their succession plan in place. 47 years. 47 years, yeah, exactly. And they're just replacing everybody, and also they are saying, bomb our desalination plants, bomb our electricity plants. We expect a certain amount of martyrdom from our people. So the leadership don't give a flying fluff about the people of Iran either. So should we give in to them? Should we just accept that that's the case? No, I mean, I'm not pretending that I'm a diplomat. But how can you
negotiate with people like that? How can you negotiate with that? Because they will say anything and to your face, and then go and do their own thing. They are absolute. They are probably the biggest menace to this whole planet, far bigger than Ed Millipede and his eco nonsense.
I've not heard that before. Why haven't I heard Millipede before? I like that.
That's another story.
I just think look, I just think I know what the answer isn't, rather than what the answer is. And I know that's not particularly helpful, but I genuinely cannot see a good outcome from this bombing.
No, you're perhaps right. But none of us have that sort of answer.
No.
But I think a short-term pain, and trust me, I went out to get some diesel for my car today, and it was...
Oh, diesel, you poor thing. How much was it?
£2 a gallon, £2 a litre. Sorry, £2 a litre. But I remember when we had a Prime Minister and a Chancellor of the Exchequer who said everybody should go on to diesel because it was far more economical.
Yes, I remember that. Was that Gordon Brown?
Thank you, Gordon Brown.
Yeah, it was Gordon Brown. I thought so.
Yeah. I'm ashamed he's a Scotsman, but there you go.
I know, but he did, thank goodness, the one thing he did that I will always love him for is decoupling the interest rates from government and giving them to the Bank of England. Can you imagine the state we'd be in under Labour?
Well, he might have done that, but he sold
He did sell all the gold.
All the gold at the cheapest prices possible. So I don't think he was a real Scot. I think he was probably a poor Yorkshireman at heart.
Oh, John, I love talking to you. Thank you for your call. You too. Poor Yorkshireman. That is a real horrible insult to a Scot, by the way. That is one of the worst things you can say. John, thank you very much indeed. I've got to take a break, but I will be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk. I just want to mention that tomorrow night, or tonight now, isn't it? Oh, you know what I mean. Wednesday's show, we're going to be on air at the time when Archimedes 2 is apparently supposed to be taking off in the first manned flight to the moon in decades now, isn't it? Yeah, so we're going to be on air for that, and we're going to be looking at that. So the moon mission launch window begins on Wednesday, today. So we will be on this programme. We will be talking to a specialist about the moon and everything before 11 o'clock, and then it's supposed to take off somewhere in the 11 to 12 hour. So we will be reacting to that. So you don't need to go anywhere else. What I'm telling you is basically we're covering it on this programme, because you know how fascinated I am by all of that as well. So I just wanted to mention that. We're going to be doing that tomorrow night or tonight, whichever way you want to look at what today is or tomorrow is at this stage. I get confused. A couple of messages I want to read out first. Andrew Baker says, I'm not a fan of Trump, but it's refreshing to see a leader stick to his guns and do what he says he's going to do. He fought to become president on no more wars. He said that no more regime change in the Middle East. He said that he wasn't going to get involved in the Middle East or in any other war. So I don't know what part of what you think he says he sticks to, because he's called Taco. Trump always chickens out. So I don't think he does stick to what he says. I mean, he did he sort of did with immigration, didn't he? Except that he did also say that they were going to go after the worst of the worst and all the criminals, and he ended up rounding up people who weren't criminals. So I don't know whether that is true. I think if you listen to him, he'll tell you that's true. But if you actually unpick stuff, he was going to come up with an alternative for Obamacare. It was always 2 weeks away. I've got a better plan. I've got a much better plan. It's going to be great. It's never happened. So a lot of what he says, he thinks he's done. He was going to lower prices. He didn't stick to that. He was going to, I don't know. I don't know, Andrew, whether I agree with that. But he says, Andrew also goes on to say, and it's a massive but, how can we trust a leader trying to explore a loophole in a 250-year-old constitution and put himself forward for a third time in office? Yeah, Trump 2028. That's really interesting, because I read into that, Andrew, as you would expect, because you know what I'm like, I get down rabbit holes. And I read into that, and the Constitution states you can't be elected president for the third time. You can't be elected president. So that's the loophole, is that they get Marco Rubio or J.D. Vance to run as president. Trump runs as the running mate, so his name's on the ticket. So it's not him being elected then, it's Rubio or Vance. And then when they get into office, they step down and Trump can become president again. So by the words of the Constitution, he hasn't been elected for a third term. Of course, that's not what they meant by that. But anyway, that's the loophole, apparently. Just thought you might find that interesting. Got a lovely message from Andrea in Cornwall, my home. So I've never messaged you before, but just wanted to say how much I enjoyed your show tonight, especially your hour with Amy. She's great, isn't she? Isn't she wonderful? Andrea, thank you. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it when I get messages like that. It means a lot. So thank you very much indeed. Kaz says, Trump has done what he did in order to create a distraction from the Epstein files, in which he's named more often than Harry Potter is named in all 7 of the Harry Potter books. So, yeah. Yes, there's issues that need sorting out, but the timing was perfect in order to hide from the Andrew and Epstein situation. Meeting the king is friends close, enemies closer tactic. Oh, that's a good point, Kaz. I like that. Yeah, they say, don't they, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Trump is on the back foot and needs to know what's happening with Andrew. Like most recent wars, they never needed to happen. Smoke screens. On the money, Kaz. I like that a lot. Thank you very much indeed. Paul is in Bolton. Good morning, Paul. How are you?
Hiya, Petrie. Are you okay?
I'm all right. I love talking to you. I mean, not for ages, and then a couple of calls in a couple of days. I'm glad.
I know I'm a bit random.
No, I love it. It's great, isn't it? We all have moments.
And plus, people don't want to always hear the same people on the radio, so it's not a bad thing when you have a little break.
Well, when they're as good as you, Paul, nobody minds. So, what do you think of what's going on at the moment, where it leaves us?
Well, that gentleman, I mean, was he the first caller? I'm someone on the left, but I do think it's ridiculous sometimes when, I was watching, I would have liked to have gone on the march on Saturday, but I was also watching some people on the left. Well, when I say on the left, they might not even be on the left, but they were definitely supporters of, they were on the Iranian side, if you get what I mean.
Right.
And I do think it's ridiculous when then people are mourning the death of the guy who's gone. Do you know what I mean?
Agree. Except that he was he's their religious leader, the Ayatollah Khamenei, and a leader to a certain section of Muslim population. So I guess it would be like if the Pope was wiped out in the Vatican, Catholics would mourn him.
Well, I think this is where, because obviously a lot of the, you know that I'm on the left, but a lot of the right, one of the things they're always pointing out with the left is, especially with the new, all this fuss around the Greens at the minute, and they keep saying they're trying to appease two camps, and I'm in the socially liberal camp, LGBT plus and all that, and like I said,
I'd say I was socially liberal. I think that's where I am as well.
That's where I am, and so I'm not going to be someone on the left who doesn't acknowledge that there is differences at times. But where I am different, then again, is that I will say that there's a lot of Muslim people out there who I've come across in my life that have been totally tolerant of LGBT plus people as well. So it's a myth that everyone's all in one camp, if you get what I mean. But one of the things that I find with the right is that they often have a lot more in common with some of these religions than they do me, because often they'll moan about them, but then they're down on socially liberal values as well, if you get where I'm coming from.
No, I totally do. Do you know what, Paul? This is, for me, this is when you talk about politics, it's the horseshoe of politics, right? So imagine the shape of a horseshoe. So there's you and me probably somewhere in the middle of the horseshoe, and then at the bottom you've got the right and the left. Right, and look how close they are. So that's the horseshoe of politics. That's what it looks like.
Well, like I said, I am left, but I'm not going to go with strict religious values, whether the strict religious belief should I say, whether that's Orthodox Judaism or whether that's strict.
Well, it's never done the LGBTQ population any good anyway, any religion, really.
Well, with the exception of possibly the Quakers, who often get overlooked. They're quite tolerant, often, the Quakers. But obviously that's not quite the topic. I don't know why I've kind of gone on to that. I'm trying to find my way somewhere here. But I just think with Donald Trump, I don't think he's done this for the good of anyone, really, but just because, I don't know, has he got dementia? Is he just a narcissist or whatever? But, this might be where me and you disagree, because I don't actually know your opinion on this. And I wasn't some big, huge Remainer or anything, but I think if there was ever a time to put the vote back to the people about the EU and closer ties with Europe, at least, maybe even customs union, it's now. And obviously we're 10 years on from the last referendum, so they could get away with it more now, but I think we need to start realising that we're Europe now.
I think we have to start realising that we're on our own, unless we do something about it.
I don't think we're on our own away from Europe as such. I mean, there's parts of Europe that we possibly not with, like some of the more Eastern European countries might be a bit objectionable towards us, but I think we definitely in Western Europe have to all work together and that, like I said. So I think I
think we're going to have to. I agree with you. I don't know whether it's rejoining any form of EU, but it is certainly being closer to our European allies, and with that, the Commonwealth countries as well, and building up some form of strength and defence for a future that may or may not include America. But I think that that it is. I think we have to plan for at least a few years of America not wanting to play with us anymore.
Well, the only saviour in all this might be the midterms, but we'll have to see if we even get the
them.
Midterms.
Yeah, the fact that we even question that, Paul.
Yeah, it is quite frightening, because even someone like Ronald Reagan, who I was very averse to as well, although I was a young person then, so wasn't up on politics the same. But even someone like him, at least he stayed to the book, and it was a case of we're a democratic country, and if we lose, we lose, and that's it for another 2 to 4 years.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And everything Trump and some of his supporters, they're going on about all these other countries like Iran, and like I said, I'm shedding no tears for that gentleman or others similar to him. I can't stand. That's where I will differ to some of them on the march on Saturday. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. But Trump's no different to that if he wants to be authoritarian, and that's what I don't get. And he's more of a hypocrite because he's pretending that America's the leader of the free world, or is he even pretending it anymore? Do you know what I
don't know. I don't know, and I find that irony as well. Is the whole idea that he said he was going to be a dictator, right? He said that. He said you'll never need to vote again, and he likes the idea of being a dictator. That's why he admires Putin and Little Rocket Man in North Korea.
But that's confusing as well, admiring Putin, because on one side, it feels like he's okay with Putin, but then Putin's connected to Iran, and then he's against Iran. Sometimes I agree. Being played a bit. I mean, there's a small part. I'm no big conspiracy person, but there's a small part of me thinks that we're all just being played.
But also, Russia is allegedly supplying Iran with targets to hit American infrastructure in the region. So Russia is apparently feeding Iran with intelligence. I mean, you'd think that Donald Trump would be more upset with that.
You couldn't make some of this up, really, could you?
No, you couldn't.
And it's very confusing for us as a general public, and sometimes I wonder why we get all worked up about it and we don't just... I mean, I've been a bit like that since the Iran war, I'm not going to lie, there's a little bit of whatever, but I didn't feel it like some others because I thought, well, I'm middle-aged, I know that sounds a bit selfish, but also at the same time, I just thought... what will be will be. Yeah,
there's actually very, very little that we can do about it. But Trump won't live forever, and cults tend to disappear when the leader goes. I don't think Vance or Rubio would be the same prospect as Trump, it's not a guarantee that Vance would be the nominated pick.
Well, and there's some good people, there's some promising people, I think, coming up within the Democratic movement that we might see as being more of.
Yeah, I agree.
Years to come.
They're doing too little. I think the Democrats have really let America down in terms of not stepping up. But I think what they're doing is waiting for the midterms and relying on the fact that they will happen. But they could have done an awful lot more, I think, to rein in Donald Trump, who has this ultimate power around the world.
Some of it is partly generational change. You're just waiting for it to happen, because I think that's going to be just a change in the world generally, because I just see as me, 49, I grew up in a world full of television where we used to have 3-4 channels, what have you, then 5 came along, and now I see all the younger people, my nephew and further down, so that's anyone from born the late 90s, whatever, and they're just completely different. They're just not at all like... I feel like I'm still a bit more in tune with older generations, even though I'm my own generation too, but younger generations who have grown up in the digital world, they just think completely differently. There'll always be some... So I think that will be the change, because I just think when it comes to a wide range of things, such as having a royal family and all these things, I just think interest will slip away. Do you know what I mean?
I agree. And I just
interested in anything like we're interested in.
No, I know, but I wonder if that's going to be a better future or a worse future. I just don't know anymore. Paul, lovely to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Stuart said, Petrie Hosken, your TDS is over the top. Please tone it down. Please try to find some balance. Hatred is not okay. No. Quick break.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it's Petrie, and this is Talk Back. Well, somebody knows their way to my heart, and that is, I think it's Philip or Pillip, not sure. Dogs welcome in Scotland. You haven't met Humphrey? I don't think he's welcome anywhere. He's managed to disgrace himself at every place I've ever taken him. So I'm not sure that Humphrey would be, but Bailey would be, because he's my good boy. He's a very good boy. But thank you very much indeed for that. This is inside Scotland's best dog-friendly cafe, serving doggy ice cream. I can't see what that cafe's called. Can you, one of you, check that for me so I can give them a shout out? I can't read it. I'm too old. Anyway, thank you for that. Hill says Trump. He's the drunk bloke at the barbecue who pokes the wasp's nest, runs away, and everybody else gets stung. That is brilliant. That's exactly how I see him as well. And Gary said, in regards to Trump abandoning his allies, that man is either evil, stupid, or has dementia. I'd guess it's all of the above. In short, I think the thin-skinned orange man baby has thrown all his toys out of the pram, leaving the rest of us to clean up his mess. That's how I feel about it. Zarina says Trump was always heading to leave NATO. He is only the custodian. He drives me crazy. You can't have reality TV people in charge. It's crazy. I think he's fabricating a host of lies as he seeks an exit strategy out of the mess that he jumped into. There's no doubt that he's panicking. I mean, even though he's doing all these speeches and stuff, there's no doubt about it. This has been a disaster for Trump. And as much as he tries to spin it, that this will be a victory for him, it absolutely is not. It has not been a victory. And when he said, oh, that was a test to see if NATO would jump in and help him, he did that deliberately so that he could leave NATO. But he has fundamentally misunderstood what NATO is. It is a defence alliance. We rush to the aid and the defence of member states that have been attacked. Article 4 wasn't triggered. He didn't trigger Article 4, and therefore, because of that, Article 5 wasn't triggered, which asks, not commands, but asks NATO allies to get involved in the defence of a NATO member, not in the attacking of another country. Even as heinous and revolting as that regime is or was or is in Iran, that's not what NATO is about. That's not what it's for. There are rules in this world. As much as Donald Trump doesn't like to admit to them or agree to them or anything, there are rules, and that is a pretty big one for NATO. It's Blether in Cults, Aberdeen. There you go. Blether in Cults. You've got to be very careful how you say that name. Blether in Cults in Aberdeen. It's a dog-friendly cafe. So go to Blether in Cults in Aberdeen, because they're dog-friendly. Even if you don't have a dog, just go there anyway and enjoy everybody else's dog. That's what I'd do. Right, let's get back to the phones now. And Kevin is in Basingstoke. Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning.
How are you this morning? You all right?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Good.
Can I just say something quickly about your conversation with John? You said about rejoining the EU. Why there's
it was with
people
Paul.
like
It was with Paul.
Oh, Paul, sorry.
That's all right.
It would be very hard for us to rejoin because every EU country has to agree. And I can't see Viktor Orban.
Viktor Orban will never agree. He hates us. I mean, literally.
Well, he's a Trump puppet.
He's a Trump puppet. Yeah, exactly that.
And, I mean, Trump was glad that we left because it makes us weaker.
It makes us more dependent on him.
Yeah, he can pick off. You can bully a weaker country, can't you? So yeah, that's never going to happen because the EU's agreed to give Ukraine 90 billion of support.
That's been held up by Orban, hasn't it?
Yeah, he's vetoed it.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I don't like about the EU is a country like Hungary.
A tiny country like that can veto the whole will of everybody else.
It's got, is it 10 million people?
It's tiny.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'd much rather be in it than out of it, but that's one thing I don't like about it. Anyway, yeah, the thing with Trump, he doesn't need NATO, but he's much weaker without it.
He sort of does need NATO because a lot of countries in NATO allow him to have bases in their countries on the basis of a NATO alliance. If suddenly the NATO countries were no longer, then they've got no reason to house American bases. You look at Ramstein in Germany, it's practically a city. It's huge, and it's only there because of the NATO alliance, right? So, all right, off you go then. And then Trump loses, or America loses its foothold in other parts of the world, which it needs. So he needs it more than he thinks he does. He just thinks of his size of his army or his military. But they still need, look at the arguments that have been going on about air bases to land and take off from.
Yeah.
He needs that. He can't fly all the way from America.
I didn't word that properly. He does need us, but, he's still the most powerful. America's still the most powerful country in the world. But without us, they are definitely a lot weaker. I mean, look, the thing is, how has America really supported us or other NATO countries after the Second World War? NATO countries have supported America multiple times in different wars, and it's cost them hundreds of billions. They also, NATO countries, they buy so much American equipment that makes their country richer. They can use that money to fund their military and sort of put it towards investment in technology in their military. Absolutely. I mean, this is the thing. And also, I don't know if you heard the programme earlier, I was talking to an oil specialist, and I was I'm fascinated by the petrodollar, because that's how it was an agreement between I think it was Saudi Arabia to begin with, and then other countries jumped on board. It was about 40-odd years ago. In return for security in the region, the Saudis would buy all of its oil, sell all of its oil, in American dollars. It became known as the petrodollar, which props up the American economy. The reason the Americans can have the massive debt that they've got is because of the petrodollar, basically. Because with Saudi Arabia, any profit that they make from the sale of their oil, all of that money goes into the American stock market, because it's dollars, and there's not a lot else they can do with the dollars, right? They're dollars, so they've got to spend them in America. So that's what they do. And a lot of countries now don't want to use the petrodollar anymore. They want to back, because it's a strong currency. But if people start moving away from the petrodollar and say use gold instead as a safe currency, which it is, safest you can probably get, and then the dollar weakens. So Trump needs, he needs the rest of the world, is what I'm trying to say. Oh yeah,
because if the rest of the world, because definitely. he looks at it very myopically. He looks at it, like, oh, I don't need them because I've got a big army or a big military. But if you start seeing other countries going, well, then what are you for? If we're not part of you, then we're not going to trade in dollars anymore. And America literally collapses because its debt is too high. And the reason it gets good interest rate on its debt is because the world spends petrodollars. It's as simple as that. Follow the money. So
they spend, just paying the interest is $1 trillion a year.
Yeah, and he's added to the debt by trillions as well. But
I think he's added, hasn't he added something like 3 trillion?
3 trillion. Yeah, you're right. Over the last year. But yeah, the point is that if you say to the rest of the world, I don't need you, great, then we don't need you. And then, do you see what I mean? And if people stop using the petrodollar, which is what Venezuela wanted to do when they nationalised, it's what Iran wanted to do years ago after the Shah was taken out. So all of these places, and you've got the BRICS nations who don't want to use the petrodollar, and of course China with the yuan, and the Iranians now trying to get people to buy their fuel in yuan.
Well, I did see somewhere, I read it somewhere, that
it's a disaster.
What we're seeing now is the collapse of the American empire.
And it'll start with the petrodollar. You watch it.
Yeah, we've seen it before. Empires don't last forever. I mean, we saw the end of the Spanish Empire, the British Empire.
It's due, isn't it? It's about 200 years. Yeah, they all collapse. But this, for America, it'll start with people turning away from the petrodollar.
Well, that's what it said. It'd be people turning away from the dollar. America doesn't produce as much as it buys in from other countries. What else did it say? Oh, yeah, their military is too big. They've overstretched themselves, and their national debt is huge. And that's what America's. It said there's 7 stages, and America's at number 5 at the moment.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Number 5. There's no turning back.
There's no turning back. You've read the same stuff that I have. It's fascinating, isn't it? Because every single fall of every empire follows the same exact pattern. And that pattern is in movement now. And what Trump is doing by saying you lot, you're on your own and all of that kind of thing is really turning, because Saudi Arabia won't be happy with that. Saudi Arabia will not be happy with the Strait of Hormuz being left. And Saudi Arabia is the one that signed the agreement 40-odd years ago, which ran out actually last year, to trade in petrodollars. So you get Saudi Arabia saying, right, well, we'll trade in yuan. Gone. That's it. That is the beginning of the end. And it really is that serious.
Didn't Iran make China buy...
in yuan. And Pakistan.
They didn't want it to be paid for in dollars or something.
No. That's right, and that's it. And China's obviously quite happy to have the yuan being the backing of oil. They're quite happy with that. So it is really interesting. If you strip away the war and the shouting and the people, the Trumpisms and all of that, and just watch what's slowly unpeeling in terms of, like you said, the dollar and the petrodollar, and if Trump abandons Saudi Arabia, that will not go down well. And they have yet to re-sign an agreement for security based on the petrodollar. It came to an end last year.
All that security that America sells the Middle East, it hasn't worked, has it?
Exactly that as well, Kevin. Exactly that. They're going to rethink it. They're going to go, well, is it worth the petrodollar? Because we can't keep any of that money.
China.
Yeah.
They're going to go to China. If America can't protect them, then maybe China will. Anyway, before I know I've taken a lot of your time, Trump said we've got to go and get our own oil from Iran. How can we do that? How can we go to Iran? I mean,
we can't. It's too dangerous. It's too dangerous. We can't. He's talking out of his bottom. He can't, because basically it'll have to be an agreement made with Iran, and that will cost us probably $2 million a tanker to get it through. I've got to take a break, haven't I? I'm really late. Sorry, I'm going to get into trouble.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good morning to you. This is Talkback and it's Petrie here with you. This one from Les in Cheshire says, regarding Trump and the war in Iran, I agree with what he's doing. As for oil prices, let's get drilling and fracking to be free of all imports so we can be self-sufficient in energy, rather than the idiot as named Ed Miliband. The problem with that is that we sell all of our oil on the international markets. It doesn't belong to us, it belongs to the oil companies, and the oil companies sell it on the international market. So it doesn't matter how much oil we drag out of the North Sea, it will be sold on the international market and divvied out. It goes into one big bucket, basically, and is divvied out across the world. So we're not self-sufficient. The only way to be truly self-sufficient, actually, is with wind and with solar. And I have my issues with that, but that is the only way to be truly self-sufficient. Honestly, look it up. Bernie says, the king should not go to the USA. Trump will embarrass him, and then what? Yeah, I know. I can just like he embarrassed the Japanese leader. Embarrassing. Robert's in Hertfordshire. Robert, we've literally got about a minute. Oh, sorry.
Okay, I'm going to be very blunt. I'm not a big fan of Trump, but we are not the same country that we was 2 years ago. Simple as that. Right? You know, he's not forgive us for not allowing us to use a basis. Now, the reason we didn't use them is not because of some morals. It was because Starradi's looking at the Muslim vote. The Muslim vote in this country has become the Bitcoin of British politics. It's as simple as that. You know, I've got.
But they only make up about 5% of the population. So how is?
Yeah, I don't believe that. I just don't believe it. But okay, so they only make up 5% of the population. But I'm talking about the actual vote. You know, and they're looking over their shoulder.
If they're motivated to go out and vote, it means that everybody else should be motivated to go out and vote. If you're saying that they're disproportionately being represented, which is possible, if they're motivated to go out and vote, then it's down to the rest of us to get out and vote as well.
They're changing laws. You know, first cousin marriages and Sharia law.
Sharia law has no legal basis in this country whatsoever.
Okay, I'm fighting a dead duck here, aren't I? I'm saying...
No, you're not fighting a dead duck, you're fighting facts.
No, but I'm saying that Starmer has got his eye, like all of them, on the Muslim vote. How comes it's that important then? Why,
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I mean, maybe it is because they're motivated and they go out and vote. And so, you know, that's